4 years ago, Richard Johnson became an election year celebrity.
Thank you very much.
He was, in effect, the only civilian on the campaign trail.
Very glad to meet you, Senators. Boy, what a wonderful experience for a little old voter from Illinois. Hello, guys. How y'all? Huh?
National Public Television selected Richard Johnson, his wife, Mary Ann, and their 4 children as a typical middle-class suburban family for 2 programs analyzing the vote. Later, they were nearly overrun by reporters. In the end, 4 years ago, even though Richard Johnson had been a Democrat all his life, and even though he spent a week traveling with George McGovern, Johnson voted for Richard Nixon. This year, Ford and Carter want to win the votes of the Johnsons and their neighbors in suburbs like Rolling Meadows, particularly in crucial swing states like Illinois. Rolling Meadows is just outside Chicago. It is one of many suburbs around the country where middle-income citizens are still troubled by inflation. Also, there is the cost of sending their children to college. And there certainly seem to be a lot of children around Rolling Meadows.
Oh, it's hot in here.
Now, besides Richard Johnson, an accountant for a steel company, and Mary Ann Johnson, who works at their nearby Lutheran church, there are 2 more Johnson voters. Rick is now 20 and in college. He says he's not at all sure what Carter stands for. Lori, the oldest daughter, is 19, out of high school and out of work. Lori says she doesn't think the politicians talk to people in her generation. Richard Johnson still considers himself a Democrat, but he's not so sure about Carter.
The only way that I feel that Carter's going to win, if he's going to win, is to people like me to instill a confidence in me that I feel that he's going to give the country a fair shake, and he's really going to do what he says he's going to do. But still, until I can be shown otherwise, I'm just going to still probably vote, Republican, even though I am a Democrat.
Mary Ann Johnson considers herself a Republican, but she hasn't written Carter off.
Well, I guess I would have to, if I had to vote today, I suppose I would vote in favor of the experience and vote for Ford. President Ford has shown that he's been able to effectualize some control with inflation, and I've heard Carter say that he intends to take inflation down even more so. But of course, he doesn't say how he plans to do that. I have no idea how he intends to effectualize that. But I don't want to shut Carter out. I think he's got a lot going for him. A lot of people have a lot of confidence and faith in him, and I want to understand that before I make up my mind, and I think the debates will help me do that.
When I do see the debates, I hope that I can, for myself, search out differences between personality and policy that will be carried out upon, one of the administrations that they would serve with. And if I can decide, between that, who would be the best president for this country, that's what I want to look for. I don't want to be, influenced by anybody's charisma, anybody's personality. I just want to decide on issues, and that's it. If the whole country could do that, I think that'd be really good.
Should we pray together? Come, Lord Jesus, be our God. Let thy gifts to us be blessed. Amen.
With the election 53 days away, the Johnsons are not quite sure where the candidates stand on all the issues. Jimmy Carter's been campaigning nearly 2 years now, but he hasn't yet reached the Johnsons at 2402 Willow Lane. We don't know if the Johnsons are a typical family this year. We do know they haven't closed the door to Carter, and we get the feeling they'd like to hear him say something that would convince them he's the strong, dependable leader they want. If not, they say they know Gerald Ford, and while he doesn't stir them, they're not all that uncomfortable with him. Howard?
Good evening. I'm Harry Reasoner in New York. In less than a minute, if things remain on schedule, in Philadelphia's Walnut Street Theater, the second series of face-to-face presidential debates in U.S. history will begin. As you can see, the two candidates, Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, are in position on the stage of the theater, the site selected by the sponsor of these debates, the League of Women Voters.
Tonight's debate, the first between presidential candidates in 16 years, and the first ever in which...
We watched the debate in Rolling Meadows outside Chicago with the Richard Johnson family and two friends who joined them for the evening.
Just 3 blocks from Independence Hall.
On Labor Day, when we visited them, the Johnsons had been looking forward to the debate. Chosen by public television 4 years ago as a typical middle-income suburban family, the Johnsons have become election year celebrities, sought out for their views and their votes. In 1972, Richard, a Democrat, and Mary Ann, a Republican, both voted for Richard Nixon. And 2 weeks ago, the Johnsons were leaning toward Gerald Ford.
I'll probably have a more clear understanding of the position I'm going to take is when the debates start.
I'm trying to keep an open mind about Carter, learn more about him. A lot of people have a lot of faith in him and confidence in him. I'd like to understand that, and that's why I'll be watching the debates very closely.
Big mistake. Should have had a double drive.
2 weeks later, the Johnsons warmed up for the debate by taking their nightly bicycle ride around the neighborhood.
Let's go over to the right here and over by the park.
Oh, all right.
If we can make it. It'd be a good idea to have the TV on here.
The Women's Club from Mary Ann Johnson's church was supposed to meet this night, but as president, she rescheduled the meeting so everybody could watch the candidates. When the debate began, the Johnsons watched and nibbled and slowly began to judge.
In the 2 years that I've been president, I've vetoed 56 bills.
Yes, we're aware of that.
This is a typical attitude that really causes havoc in people's lives. And then
So much of this is just, you know, attacking each other, you know, degrading each other's position.
So, how did the debates affect the Johnsons? 2 weeks ago, their 19-year-old daughter Lori told us politicians don't talk to people in her generation. We don't know if the debates changed her mind because she watched them at her boyfriend's house. 20-year-old Rick Johnson is a college student who told us he would try to separate the candidates by how they stood on the issues rather than how they looked or sounded.
I think Carter presented himself well, but I don't think it's time for a president who looks good and is very, you know, glib or has a quick tongue or something. I think it's time for somebody who's tough, who's going to take a stand. I think that's what Ford is trying to do.
Honestly, I have to admit that though I thought Ford, in my opinion, won the debate, I felt that Carter did a lot better than I thought he would.
I heard a lot of humanism coming out of Jimmy Carter that I think is honest.
I really like Carter. I've come a long way, I guess, but I really like Carter, but the hitch is the fence.
And when we hear the next debate, I think that's going to, you know, really put me in a position where I know where I'm going to stand.
I haven't made up my mind about whom I'm going to vote for. But I heard more from Carter tonight. You know, if I were to weigh the balance, because I expected him to get clobbered completely. Oh, I did. Well, I did.
We don't know how the other people on Willow Lane reacted to the debates tonight, but here at the Johnson house, between the potato chips and the pretzels and the coffee and the cake, Gerald Ford came across pretty much as expected. Solid, if not stirring. But Jimmy Carter surprised them a little and definitely made some progress. Howard?